Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of whatever this series is. I have been sitting down and interviewing various judges, various entrants of Birth Photographer of the Year, because I just think it's really important to be able to get both perspectives of entrants and perspectives of judges. And one person that I'm so excited to be sitting down with is Fiona Handbury. Fiona has been photographing since 1986. She is Australian College in Photography, Arts and Communication is where her degree is. She has a bachelor. You have, hold on, let me just Fee, you have some letters behind your name that I don't even know how to pronounce. So B, App Science Photography from RMIT, and a golden key holder. I don't know what that is, but that sounds really cool. Kodak Travel Scholarship to RIT in the USA. You're an AIPP master. You are a part of the AIPP Awards Committee. You are international and national award-winning photographer across multiple genres, including family, wedding, landscape, scientific, which I want to chat about, portrait, and pet. Finalist for AIPP Illustrative Photographer of the Year, Australian judge for the World Photographic Cup, a judge for AIPP, a judge for Birth Photographer of the Year, and you're the captain on the World Photographic Cup Team Australia. Girl.
That about sums it up.
I literally have, tell us about yourself and please don't be shy.
It's so hard to talk about yourself, isn't it?
It can be hard, but like I met you, back in 2015, I think. It's been probably a hot minute now. Probably with either heavily pregnant or with a baby on the boob, probably a baby on the boob.
Definitely a baby.
Yeah, by the time I moved from Darwin back down to Melbourne, I was like, oh my God, humans, because we didn't know anybody in Darwin. It was just us. And then I came and I became a member of AIPP, and there were like all these really nice people. And they were like, oh my gosh, your baby's so cute. And I was like, do you want to hold him? And they were like, yes. And I'd be like, great. And I just dump my baby and run. That's how I met Kate Atkins. But I always, when given the opportunity, just love to kind of sit down and chat about your experience, particularly not just photographically with creation, but also with awards. You're incredibly involved in multiple awards. Do you do anything with WPPI or Icon?
No, I don't.
Okay. But yeah, so there's so much, and I would just love to know we know how long you've been doing photography, but how long have you been entering the awards? Like, where did it start for you?
It started for me back in about 2014 with the AIPP Awards. And I just, had been working at home as a mum with young kids who picked up a camera, and I kind of needed to expand my network. I didn't really have a network of photographers anymore. I'd finished my degree back in the 90s. Those photographers had moved on and either become worldwide famous fashion photographers or computer geeks or gardeners, or they'd moved on to different realms. They weren't photographers anymore. So I needed to find a new way to expand my network. And to do that, I got involved with the AIPP. Also got involved with Heartfelt, which is where I think I actually came across your name for the first time, because you were up in Darwin as our rep, were you not?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
So that's where I first came across your name, was via Heartfelt. So I just needed to expand that, and then I just needed to get stuck out of my rut too. So I thought by entering competitions, I could do exactly that. Yeah, meet new people, expand my network, and get creative.
Yeah. I do remember that is where I met you, was via Heartfelt. Why does entering the awards, why is that important to you?
Lacey, I have a really long list for that, actually. There's a really long list of reasons. First of all, I entered because my friends that I'd connected with through the IAPBP said you should enter. And I went along to my first awards, I think in 2013, and I watched them being judged, and I watched all the work on the wall, and I went, wow, this is really inspiring. I wonder if I could do that. And so the only way to find out if you can do that is to actually enter. So I entered. And then through that process, which is what I guess I really wanted to share and hone or share with people really, was that in entering a competition, it's not just that ego of I'm entering a competition. There is definitely ego involved, but there is so much more. I've touched on network, I've touched on community, I've touched on developing your skills. I knew where I wanted my images to go, but I didn't know how to get them there. So I worked with Rocco and Cora, I worked with Ian Vanderwald, I worked with Karen Dobia, trying to develop my skills in not only editing but also in printing so that I could get my images to a level where they were suitable for entry. And that in itself taught me a great deal about a different side of photography, because when I trained as a photographer, I trained in film. Everything was, in the darkroom. You dodged and burned with your hands and, pieces of paper and, yeah, it was a completely different world. So coming into Photoshop with no skills at all, learning that whole new skill set was really advantageous to make a great connection of network of people through that. But I think just comparing yourself to your peers, where am I sitting? Am I doing okay? Am I on the right track? And that's motivation to improve, not like as competition, but improve your own skills. I thought that was a really good lesson to come out of that, is just myself learning new techniques and going, yeah, okay, I don't suck. I'm sitting well within my industry. I'm a good professional practice. Oh, look at that. I've won an award. That image is obviously elevated beyond that. I'll keep going down that track. And that was really exciting to follow that track too.
I love how you present that, of going from professional practice and then you get one award and you go, oh, whatever I did in that image, I should do more of that. And that kind of gives you the incentive to explore whatever you did creatively there and then replicate it. And, I say this a lot, you win some, you lose some. And that's, I think for me, part of the awards process is going through and then collating your images, collating your portfolio, submitting it, and releasing it into the hands of the viewer to consume the art. And then being like, it's either done its job or it hasn't. And if it hasn't, I don't feel like it's a failure on my part. I feel like that there was probably a better way that I could have communicated what I was trying to say in that image. And it just opens up a new, brainwave of creativity. Like, oh, okay, I tried to tell that story or execute that like this. That didn't work. So how can I tell the same story in a different way? And that might mean going into a birth with the same concept, but then executing it and photographing it with a different composition, with a different style, with a different eye, all of those things. And I think it just brings to the forefront creativity for me, and it helps me not get stagnant in my work because I'm going into a birth space actively looking for something really cool. Not that birth is not cool. Birth is really cool, but something else I've said a lot is pretty mundane. It's labor, birth, postpartum. And so our job as the creator, the artist, is to find those in between moments. And when I'm thinking about awards in mind, it forces me to look at my art different than what I would if I were delivering to a client.
I absolutely agree with that. And it doesn't matter what genre you're shooting. I know myself, even in my birth photography, that, and I think I've explained this to you before, I don't call myself a birth photographer. I'm a photographer who has photographed births. I think there's a distinguishable difference between the two.
I agree.
I think in my case, at least those first 5 births, I would have walked into the room and just been so focused on not missing a moment, making sure I had, good lighting, good composition, good engagement and supported the people in the room. That sort of really honed to me a passion for birth photography, I think, was feeling connected to what was happening in the room. But I never, in those first 5 births, I definitely didn't have the capacity to go, oh, how can I navigate this creatively? How can I find a new way of telling the same story? Or what could I do differently here? Or in those quiet moments pre-birth, when we're, waiting for all the exciting things to happen, what can I do differently in this room to create an award image? So you can't just turn up to a birth and, well, yes, you can actually turn up to a birth and create an outstanding award level image, but that's not necessarily something you had control of. But yeah, just thinking more creatively about the space that you're in. And that's no different to me turning up to work to a commercial space or a corporate space or a family shoot or a newborn shoot. How can I do this differently for this client, for myself, so that I can grow? And I think that's the difference in elevating your work from professional practice to award level, is just that thinking space.
Yeah, okay. So you have a vast experience in judging and awards. And you just touched on something that I think is really probably helpful to our entrants is what are some things that as a judge you specifically, or just sort of in general, are we looking for that is the difference between something that is a great professional standard and something that is award level?
I am a technical judge. That BAPSI that you were saying all these letters, I have a Bachelor of Applied Science in Photography, so my training was very scientific based, very technical based. Again, back in film days, so you had to get the exposure right, you had to get the composition right, all in camera, and because you couldn't see what you'd shot unless you were pulling Polaroids, and Polaroids were expensive back then, so you didn't want to pull too many of those to get it right. So I think when you walk into a space, a family shoot, a newborn shoot, a birth space, a corporate space, a commercial space, if you just walk in and take the photo, if you add nothing to it other than documenting what it is, I think that can be professional practice. But I think if you go, okay, if I expose this differently, if I expose for the highlights, or if I expose this for the shadows, this could dramatically influence the viewer's experience of this same image. Instead of just going, oh, I just need an even exposure. If you go, left or right of that histogram could make this a really different image. Well, then I think the photographer's then having creative input to the image they're creating. And then that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for how has the photographer influenced this image into being something more than they've just pushed the clicker on. What have they done differently? Did they go 2 centimeters to the left or to the right, or maybe 2 steps to the left or to the right? Have they gone up? Have they gone down? Did they consider what focal length they used? Has the focal length made a difference? Has the quality of their equipment potentially made a difference? The quality of their light, has that made a difference to this image? I think all of those probably standout things for me. What has the photographer brought to this image to elevate it from professional practice to an award image?
That's really great insight. Do you remember Axel's image? I do believe you were on the panel when that image was judged. And one of the things that I appreciated, and this feedback still sticks with me to this day, because it just made I felt so validated. In Axel's image, it was a gold distinction, and also went on to be 3rd place in World Photographic Cup, but in the reportage category for Australia, which we won. But that aside, one thing that I did very intentionally with Axel's image is I shot that for the shadows and the blacks. And then I pulled it into post and I crunched those blacks. And it's really funny because one judge was like, the blacks are clipped, I don't like it. And then another judge were like, no, actually, I think this was done on purpose. And it was a really great opportunity for you guys to share the overall aesthetic. And with this other judge who then did eventually come up in her score. But it was the validation of being like, oh, I knew that I had intentionally crunched the blacks, and I knew that it was a risk that I was taking, but I also knew that creatively that I wasn't just presenting a technically sound image, but I knew the rules and that I wanted to break them. And I wanted to do that by having this emotion of being swallowed whole by the darkness. And so I felt so validated when you'd given that feedback. And I was like, oh my gosh, she saw it. So it is okay to break the rules. It is okay to crunch blacks. And that was just such a profound moment for me that enabled me to continue creating and then breaking those rules in the name of artistry, and then delivering, that message. So, yeah.
I think, Lacey, the difference was that you made an intentional decision. It wasn't a technical error.
Right.
You didn't stuff up your exposure. You intentionally decided to shift your histogram that way, and that needed to be rewarded. It was breaking the rules, sure, because we're trained as professional judges to look for, are there details in the highlights? Are there details in the shadows? Is there a color cast? Is there a this? Is there a that? But sometimes emotion overrules that, and impact in the storytelling of how you've chosen to capture that image. It's an intentional choice, and I think that's what very much made the difference to that image.
Yeah, thank you. I want to kind of shift not away from creativity, but how you've taken all of your knowledge and information and then gone into applying that into running awards. So you're the team captain for the World Photographic Cup for Team Australia. Take us through that process and how all of your knowledge has played into that. That seems like the pinnacle of coolness.
It sounds really cool, but what it really is a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of work, as you know.
Yes.
I think it was a bit of a natural progression for me. I started off just behind the scenes print handling at the IAPBP Awards because I couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to see the image, or the print in our case. I wanted to see the print before it went to the judges, and then I wanted to listen to their feedback. And then I wanted to see the image again to apply what they had just said to what I was seeing, and then to work out the scores in my head. So that's how I started learning how to be a judge, was by observation. And then I went through great training with Bill Backman and Robin Campbell as well, for AIPP judges training, which was intensive and really comprehensive, and loved that experience. And so then I went on to judge with the AIPP. And then we got to COVID, and the AIPP moved online for the Silver Linings Awards. And that's when I was invited to be part of the committee. Would you come on board as part of the committee for the Silver Lining Awards? I was like, yeah, I've no idea what it involves, but I'm up for that. And then that rolled into, will you help us set up and run the next APA Awards? And I'm like, absolutely, I'm on board for that. And that was a humongous amount of work. We're selecting venues and, sponsors and food, and how we're going to hydrate and feed and motivate and encourage all of these people in a creative space that's safe, all of those technical things that go with it. But then when the AIPP folded, WPC came along as an opportunity where I was invited again onto a committee. Could you come and join our committee? And then it was like, well, actually, we need a judge. Can you judge this year? And when you're judging for the World Photographic Cup, you're not judging Australia, you're judging the rest of the world. So you get exposed to a huge amount of work with different cultures, different beliefs, but also their different styles of photography. And so then you're looking at the technical aspects of how they do it in Mexico or Spain or Canada or, Poland or wherever it was. It was fascinating to see what each country thought was a good image, and what they thought was their level of professional practice against what we know here in Australia. And so then elevating up from, being a team judge was, can you come on the committee? That committee then all sort of got a little bit distracted, and that sort of left me to run the show. And it's like, holy crap, I need some images to put through to represent Australia. And again, that network that I'd established through the AIPP, through all my photographer friends saying, hey guys, would you like to represent Australia? Would you like to be part of a team? Your image will get individual recognition, absolutely, but you get to say you were Team Australia, and I think that's pretty cool.
It's
Or
super
if you were
cool.
Team America, you get to say you were Team Canada or Team America or Team wherever for whatever country you're from. But it's to represent your country is huge. So,
It's
but there's a lot of
probably,
technical.
sorry, go ahead.
No, just a lot of technical and stuff. A lot of spot fires that you've got to contain, make sure they don't get out of control.
Yep.
A lot of time pressures, and to
Form's
some
not
degree,
working.
there can be a lot of ego. A lot of egos to manage too.
Yeah.
Some people who think that their work should naturally go through doesn't necessarily make it because this year's curators might have a different opinion to where this award should go this year. It all comes down to that experience of who's looking at your images at the time. And I guess, again, that's why we have traditionally 5 judges look at work when we're judging it and giving it a score.
Yeah, I think that 5 judges thing is just one of the best things because it really balances everything out. It keeps our fellow judges in check, but it also allows for diversity. It also allows for a difference in opinion, and it's so much fun. That's probably one of my favorite things about Birth Photographer of the Year is going through and creating the judge's schedule and then being like, this person would be great with this person, would be great with this person, and then curating that 5 panel because we all know we don't want a panel of 5 Lacey's and Fionas on one panel together. It would not be fun.
I can get a little bit too serious, so it's fun if you come across like a really fun and funny, entertaining judge with someone with me that's like, ooh, quite serious, and then when you're having that little bit of banter, you go, oh yeah, that's right, I can relax. I don't have to be too serious.
Like, gee.
So, I mean, you've always created such a warm and encouraging environment for judging. I just love it. It's a great opportunity.
Thanks. I'm also a firm believer in the need for photographers who aren't necessarily strictly only shooting birth or have ever shot birth. I think that there is, it could be an unpopular opinion, but I didn't start elevating my work as a birth photographer until I started watching the portrait category, the landscape category, the pet category, the family, and really what pushed it over the edge was watching the creative category in AIPP and APP and, Icon and like all of these different Rise Awards, all of these different awards. There's the New Zealand Iris Awards as well. And being a part of those and listening to judges' feedback, which, by the way, when I first started entering in 2015, it was not a nice experience for me because I was coming from this idea of I was a big fish in a little pond. I'll put it like that. And I had an ego and I thought that I was the greatest thing alive. Looking back, my. If you knew me back then and you still know me, thanks for sticking with me. But how much I have learned, right? And I pushed back the feedback and I was like, these judges don't know anything. Middle-aged white men and they've never shot a birth.
Yeah, but Lacey, I want to add to that. And this is why the Birth Photographer of the Year Awards are so important. Your education of photographers, of the public, of judges, just elevating the public perception of birth photography is so important. And I think you've played a pivotal role in that. And people who enter awards play a continued pivotal role in developing the public's perception of birth photography. And it can only go from strength to strength every year because you are exposing the public to higher quality images. If you look back at what won gold awards in, say, 2010 versus what won gold awards in 2020, they are worlds apart. And they are worlds apart because everybody had to keep leveling it up. They had to keep developing new techniques. They had to perhaps follow new trends, which is not always great. But they had to level up. And I think by having and taking part in the Birth Photographer of the Year Awards, you are leveling up every year. And you're also leveling up the client's experience. So I just think it's an incredible incredible challenge and incredible awards to be a part of.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. That's amazing to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't until I took that feedback and went, I don't like this part of what you said, but I'll try this bit. And then I did that and I went, oh my gosh, I think they were right. Do you know how many judges I went to in like 2017, 2018 when I won Victorian Documentary Photographer of the Year and was like, hey, you judged my image back in 2015 and you said this and I didn't like it, but I did it this year and I won. And I just want to apologize and say thank you. And actually, you're kind of cool. I don't hate you anymore.
Only took a few years.
And
yeah, but at least you were creative and I was going to say gutsy enough to put your work out there in front of your peers to be critiqued. You know, we all think our work's amazing. We all think, wow, like, this is the best photograph I've ever taken, and you'll put it before your peers and your peers will can the shit out of it, and you'll go one of two ways. What the flip do they know? Or exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't like that. Maybe that point's valid, and you'll take that little bit on and you'll elevate your own experience and your own photography by that one little bit that you took away.
Yeah, well, one of the bits that I didn't like was everyone kept telling me that my images needed to be converted to black and white. And I was like, I draw the line there, friend, not doing that. And so each year I submitted more color. And each year it got destroyed, not destroyed, but it was like, same feedback, put this in black and white, put this in black and white, until I finally caught on and I went, okay, maybe there's something wrong with my color. Maybe I need to fix my color. And then I started, like, I was just going through my Facebook messages from 5 years ago, 7 years ago, Christopher Ian Vanderwall, like, hey, what do you think about this color? What's wrong with this color? Is there a color cast? What's going on with my monitor? I think I need to calibrate my monitor. Hey, can I come and sit with you while we look at my image and then I print it? I'll pay you. Hey, can I? And then I started delving into the color wheel and color science and figuring out this and that and complementary colors, and not just like desaturating colors, but maybe using split toning and like color correcting that way and selecting specific colors. And then no one told me to convert my stuff into black and white. And I was like, I win. And now everyone is, one of the judges, I was doing a judges training the other day, and one of the judges was like, hey, I know that this is black and white, but I'd actually think this would do better in color. And I was like, we win. Color wins.
I think you just proved a point there, Lacey, that we're both, I think, sort of dancing around here. What degree of growth was involved in all of that as a result of entering competitions? Would you have developed any of that skill, technique, network had you not been involved in competition?
No, never. I'd still be walking around thinking that I was a shit when I wasn't.
And you wouldn't have elevated your work, and your clients wouldn't have seen that elevation and growth. And I don't know about you, but I went from charging this price to charging this price after awards because I'm now an award-winning photographer and I've got a little bit more of a clue about what I'm doing. And now I've got a little bit more of a clue. Each year you just level it up.
Yeah.
And you can justify your price increase.
Yeah.
To yourself, let alone to your client.
I think it's mainly to ourselves, isn't it? Photographers are our own worst enemies. We need to get out of our heads.
Yeah, I mean, it helps build your credibility by all means. But I just think I know it certainly helped my confidence.
Oh.
Every time I entered an award and I didn't suck, it just elevated my confidence that little bit more.
Yeah.
And then when you said, I'm across all these genres, I was like, okay, well, I won an award in that genre. Now I want to go win an award in that genre. Or that one. So, I recently just won my first landscape award. I was like, but I don't call myself a landscape photographer. I'm just somebody who won a landscape award.
Yeah. I took some of my birth photography, but also like my motherhood, parenthood portraits, and put them into the portrait category just to, spice things up for the judges, because the judges are expecting like these amazing fashion portraits and like runway portraits. And yeah, and then you have like a self-portrait of me standing in front of my birth bunting. And I won awards in portrait. And one year I actually had enough to be considered the portrait photographer of the year, which was like mind blowing to me. I wasn't a finalist.
Yeah.
That category is so ginormous. But for me, I was like, I have 340 points. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me to be like, I'm the best portrait photographer ever. I am not.
But that belief that you are came from, that little bit of faith. Oh, I'm going to enter this. I'm going to try something different. And once you believe that you are the best portrait photographer, you really
You
are.
are. That's it. Because from there, I started doing more portrait work. And it opened up the door for me to do more intimate mother sessions and intimate parenthood sessions and more portrait sessions and documentary style, like in-home photographs, which I had never really done because I had it in my head, oh, if it's not birth photography, then I'm not great at it. So I just stick to what I'm good at. Throw a couple images in different categories and you win a couple awards and you're like, oh, I don't suck.
Yeah. It's my favorite phrase ever. I don't suck.
It's the best. But even if you get professional practice in those, it's still just as validating because you're like, oh, I'm sitting at the same level as professional portrait photographers. And I don't even photograph portrait full time. And even that.
It's really even to get that professional practice level because it just reinforces you. Okay, great. This is great, good quality everyday work. This is what I want to strive for as a minimum.
Yeah. As
a minimum.
Thank you.
The awards, they're icing on the cake, and then they're your sprinkles on the cake, and then they're the cherry on top.
Yes. Fiona, if you had one piece of advice that you could give to entrants, what would you give to them?
I would say absolutely reach out for critique. Find a mentor. Find someone that you can go to and say, or find a group. Find your people. Find your people that you can open your soul to and say, I think this is the best work I've ever done. But you feel that you are protected and in a safe space enough for to take on their feedback when they say to you, actually, it's out of focus.
Mm-hmm.
Or got a bit of a color cast. Or can give you constructive feedback in a safe space and encourage you to do better.
Mm-hmm.
Find your awards, whatever they are. Find the awards that you feel the most comfortable with, that push you to be something a little bit different, and just try something new, try something different. That very next shoot that you go to, do 1% more. Do 1% more than you did at the last one. Just one thing different. Find a mentor, find your people, and find the 1%. That's probably my advice.
That's 3 free tips from Fiona Handbury. Thank you.
For whatever they're worth.
A lot. Thank you so much, Fee. It's always such a great pleasure. And I'm so grateful for your time and investment in this awards with us and for coming and giving your knowledge and your expertise. It's always such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Lacey. And thank you, everybody, for entering. I'm so looking forward to seeing all your amazing work.
We can't wait. Entries are closing in 4 days. So I'm going to go put this out immediately and spam everybody. So thanks, Fee.
No worries. Thanks, Lacey.